The next day in the Advertiser, the big paper in Adelaide, was a picture of me lying on the ground with a trainer standing over me. And I remember the headliner says, Crows rookie crashes in first run. He said, when you passed out, he said, we didn't expect you to come back, but you kept coming back. He said, we almost made a bit of a pact amongst the coaches to make it hard for you. We love the way that you were resilient through that pre-season. We love the way you play. So he said, that's what we want. We want someone that's tough and resilient.
Andrew Crowell, Crowell's Crow Dog, Head of High Performance and Wellbeing and Culture at Ray White. Previously worked at the British and Irish Lions, not them ones, at the Brisbane Lions. Personal Excellence and Wellbeing Manager. It gives me my great pleasure to welcome you to this podcast. Andrew Crowell, Crow Dog. Talk to me.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me. It's a privilege to be on your show. I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Before the corporate career even started, you were a kid from South Australia who went to play AFL, and I want to pick up the story there because I think that's where your story is very publicly known. Give us that time when you were transferring out of high school, trying to break into the AFL.
So I grew up on a farm. So I was 2,500 acres, cattle, sheep, wheat, barley. My life as a kid was finish school, get home, smash about 10 wheat picks, and then either jump on a motorbike or whatever, just hang out at the farm. I just thought the AFL was so unrealistic that I'd ever be able to get there.
But that obviously didn't stop you from having a red hot crack at it.
I remember Dad saying to me, mate, you're going to Adelaide to live and you're going to play footy in Adelaide. And I said, I'll just work on the farm. So Dad said, no, you're going to Adelaide. Because my dad's story was pretty unbelievable. He was a gun. He was pretty much the first of the Crowell family to play football. So he had an invitation from North Adelaide and Norwood back in the old days, which was a really high standard of footy back then. There was no AFL, so the Sandford was high standard. So Dad got an invite, but he pretty much wasn't allowed to go to Adelaide. He was needed on the farm. So his dad sort of said, we need you here, mate. You can't go to Adelaide. And Dad was sort of he was the cricketer and the footballer, and he loved it. He was very good at both. And so when I finished school, Dad we'd had Port Adelaide come up and watch me play, and he said, mate, you're going to go to Adelaide and trial with Port Adelaide in the Sandford. Yeah. So I did a pre-season. I got really, really homesick. I was a country boy. For the first 12 months, I'd spent most of my life crying in my bedroom because I just had no mates in Adelaide, and it was hard. Like going out training with Port Adelaide Maggies was really tough. I'd never trained at that level before, so it was a real challenge. And I did my knee. I'd dislocated my right kneecap a number of times and had an operation. So my season in '95 was pretty much going in and doing weights and all that, and my idols as a kid were all walking around, and But it was a tough year because when you become injured in a team sport like that, it's very isolating. So I sort of said to Port, look, I'm going to go and play with my mates at the Eagles, and they were very good about it. They understood why, and I got to the Eagles, and I just remember the first day I was at the Eagles, it was like I found my place. The senior players, league players at the Eagles were just great fellas. We won the premiership in '96, and that to this day is easily the most fun year of football I've ever had. And that was the first year. At the end of the year, I remember West Coast Eagles reached out. Yep. And they didn't promise anything, but it felt like I was a big chance to get drafted to the Eagles, and never happened. Following year didn't happen again. And then the year after that, the Crows sort of knocked on the door. And probably the big change was I went and got myself a manager. Yeah, well, this is what I found out of the weekend. I think it was Gailey who said that to me. Yeah. What makes Andrew? And he was like, well, he's always willing to invest in himself. Well, because that was probably pretty unique back then. That there wasn't many other kids who would have done that. I remember the time it happened. I remember Ian Gray was his name, and he came to the Eagles Footy Club and just dropped some cards, and one of our coaches just said, look, anyone who's interested in having a manager, this is Ian, and I just picked the card up and called him. What do you think, like if you looked in the room of all the other people who had the chance to do that, whatever, what was the thing that made you pick that card up and then go, you know what, I'm going to do this? It was probably the fact that the Eagles had reached out. So that gap between like AFL's, I'm nowhere near good enough for AFL, to now it's potentially a reality, and probably needed a bit of help. I wasn't an angel, never have been. So he was the one that probably straightened me up a little bit and got me on the straight and narrow. And probably the thing though, I've always been a hard worker. Yeah. So at the time when I was playing Eagles, I was playing league footy and I was working for Lynn Fox Transport as a site manager. Yeah. I was 18, working early mornings, long hours, and then get in training and train. And that was probably the thing that the Crows, when my manager spoke to him, they said, look,
This kid's got graft.
yeah, he's doing all this and he's still playing league footy.
And he's like, this kid's got work ethic. Talk me through what happens next.
Well, it was interesting. So I had this manager, and he was great. And the Crows reached out to me. My initial thought, though, when the Crows rang me, was like, yeah, no worries, thanks. I've heard this before. I watched the draft.
Nothing happened.
Name didn't get called out, which I didn't expect it to. And then all of a sudden, phone rings on the Sunday, and it was James Fantasia. He said, mate, we didn't draft you, but we've got a couple of spots, rookie spots left, and a couple of senior spots in the preseason draft.
Yeah.
We'd love to get you out to do a preseason. And I said, okay, I'd love to. Great. When do I start? What, 2 or 3 weeks? He said, no, you're got to be at the club tomorrow. And I'd been crook as well. I had tonsillitis. And I said, mate, I've been crook. I said, I don't know how I'm going to go. He said, no, we'll ease you into it. So
we'll just go easy on you, pal.
Yeah. Right. So I rang my boss, who was Peter Shattuck, and said, mate, I've got to go and train at the Crows tomorrow. He said, no, it's all right. You leave it with me. And he went and actually filled my role. He was the manager of
This is the Linfox thing.
Yeah. So
then he's come in, stepped in years, so he could give you that freedom to go.
Yep. And he looked after me. Yeah. So I'm forever grateful for Shatsy. And so I rolled up to the Crows, and it's an embarrassing story. It was quite funny, but I remember rolling up, and they put me in all the Crows gear and everything. And my first run, they said, we're going to do a run, and it's a 6 kilometre run at E3. And I'm like, what's E3? And they said, basically, E4 was sprinting as fast as you could. E3 was like a time trial pace.
Yeah.
And I did it very slowly. And at the end of it, I felt like I was going to pass out. So one of the trainers said to me, just lie down on the ground, Crowley, lie down on the ground. So I lied on the ground and sort of just, I started to come good, and they took me inside and, put me an ice vest on me and sorted me out. The next day in the Advertiser, the big paper in Adelaide, was a picture of me lying on the ground with a trainer standing over me. And I remember the headliner says, Crows rookie crashes in first run.
Yeah.
And then for the rest of the preseason, so I just kept rolling up. No one said to me, mate, don't come back. I just kept going.
Yeah.
So they put me in the rehab group. I just kept getting fitter, played a couple of good trial matches. And I just thought, how often do you get to train with the Adelaide Crows? Like, I'm not going to get drafted. And the Crows coaches, holy shit, they just got stuck into me.
Because who was coaching back in them days?
Gary Ayres was coaching.
Yeah, there you go.
And Easy was like, I loved Easy. Like, he was tough and
but
hard.
old school tough.
Old school tough. Daryl Hart, same sort of methodology. And they just, any chance they had to give me grief as far as verbally, they gave it to me. Yeah. And I just copped it and got to draft day. And I remember walking off the training track, and one of the trainers said, Crowley, well done, mate. Well done. I'm like, thanks, mate. I thought, I didn't train that well. Like, I was okay. Then one of them handed me the phone and said, this is for you. So I picked up the phone, and it was Gary Ayres. And he said, mate, congratulations. We've picked you up with our second pick in the preseason draft. You're now a listed player.
Listed Adelaide Crows player.
Yeah. And he said, he goes, that first day of training, he said, when you passed out, he said, we didn't expect you to come back, but you kept coming back. He said, we almost made a bit of a pact amongst the coaches to make it hard for you. We love the way that you were resilient through that preseason. We love the way you play. So he said, that's what we want. We want someone that's tough and resilient. So
good.
Yeah. And then I played the first game.
First game,
against Western Bulldogs at Footy Park, which was a massive thrill. But yeah, it was pretty special to run out. Probably the thing with my footy career that made me the most happy, because it was tough, and it was, everyone sees the bright lights of game day. I didn't love being an Adelaide Crows player. I didn't love the training. I wasn't probably as dedicated. I wasn't making the sacrifices that I needed to make, and that's my fault. Look back on that now, and because I was always thinking about, like, I'm missing out on this and I'm missing out on that. My parents are down at Corny, and Corny Point's
so you obviously very touched that area too.
Yeah, so I was always going, the kids, all my brothers and sisters, they're back at Corny, and I'm poor me's having to train with the Crows.
Yeah, poor me.
I look at it now, which is kind of dumb, but yeah, that's the way I roll. And we managed to knock out 44 games over 4 years.
Those 4 years sort of came to a bit of an end abruptly when your knee incident happened. Do you want to talk us through that real quick?
Yeah. I knew I needed a good year that year. So we had guys like Chris Massey and Jason Tawney who'd come back from Carlton and Richmond.
And they were pushing for spots and everything else.
They were similar players to me. And I probably hadn't developed like I probably should have. I knew I needed a good year, and then I did the knee plan back in the SANFL, had a reconstruction, and so did my rehab really diligently through that next 6 months. But unfortunately, got the hook at the end of the year. That was probably the other part that I really struggled with being in the system, was that it's a very claustrophobic industry.
Yeah.
And again, I look back at it and go, I should have just embraced it. Why didn't I embrace that almost celebrity tag? Like, I remember walking into Westlake Shopping Mall, which we always used to go in to get a feed, and I said to my girlfriend at the time, I said, "Jesus, it just feels like everyone's staring at me." And she said, "That's because everyone's staring at you."
Yeah. It's because they are.
But no one was ever rude, or everyone was always polite.
Yeah.
But I just I suppose that's my personality. I'm quite a overthinker. And I saw a psychologist a couple of times, and the first time, one of the psychs, he said to me, I remember him saying, like, "How much pain are you in when that's happening?"
Yeah.
And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, when you're in West Lakes Mall and there's all these people staring at you, how's your pain?" I said,
"Yeah,
I'm not in any pain." He goes, "What are you worried about it for then?"
You were struggling. You know that's
Yep.
That's on the record. You weren't enjoying life in football. And one of your teammates apparently is approaching some at you, right?
Yeah. So it was Rhett Biggles. So Biggles, I'm still great mates with Biggles. We used to room together when we travelled interstate.
Yeah.
We're teammates at Woodville West Torrens before we both got drafted to the Crows. And it was probably, I don't know how long, maybe 3 or 4 months. I hadn't played a senior game of AFL for the Crows for that year. And I wasn't having suicidal thoughts ever. I've never got to that point, but I was kind of like, what can I do that'll stop me having to go to training? That's where my head was.
You weren't enjoying training?
Yeah, I just wasn't enjoying it. And looking back, a big part of it was I was my own worst enemy. If I'd have made the sacrifices that I'd made and invested fully, I probably wouldn't have been feeling that way. But
so expand on those a bit. What sacrifices were you not making that you should have made? Like what
dietary type things.
Yeah,
I was
sleep.
hanging out with mates and sleep and not getting to bed on time and drinking too much piss and all these sorts of things. So I was just being a lad.
Yeah.
And and I look back and go, yeah, if I just invested more into my career, I probably would have got through and had a much better life afterwards. But
you didn't know. You didn't know.
You didn't know,
That's
exactly.
right.
And that's why I've got to where I am around. I've been able to sort of rectify that. Everyone makes massive mistakes, and I think one of the things I've been really good at is being resilient and actually saying, I've stuffed up there. I can now move forward.
So coming back to that, then when the knee thing happened,
Yep.
and that was it. The AFL career was gone. It was over.
Yep.
Like there's a moment then where you're like, well, what now?
Yeah.
Probably. Well, I think from what you've said on record too, there was this initial relief.
Big time. Yeah. Firstly, it was relief. I remember sitting in with the coaching staff. I always remember what Gary Ayres said to me. He said, "I don't want you to ever question your courage."
Yeah.
I remember those words will always stick with me from what Gary said. And then I'm pretty sure Reedy he then rang me and said, "Mate, we're not going to offer you a contract for next year."
Yeah.
And I think it was relief initially. And we never had any drive or encouragement to do anything away from football.
Yeah.
Back in those days, it was just you played footy and you're a professional. So
that's your job.
Yeah, well, anything else got in the way of that. And it's very much changed around how much time you have to spend there. So we didn't have time to go and do a part-time job or anything or study. So I was probably more prepared for it than most because I didn't get drafted straight out of school.
Yeah.
And I'd spent time in the workforce.
That's right. You had that time in the workforce. And
yeah.
So it wasn't like a complete unknown, but it was like certainly a challenge to think, well, what now?
Yeah, it was. I wasn't ever panicked about what was going to happen next. I had this really, really stupid mindset of, I'm Andrew Crowell from the Crows. Like, I'll have jobs coming out my ear. Like, quickly realised that you have to have the right skills to do jobs. People go and get people who are qualified. So, but that's the mindset I was probably in. So I just rang around a few mates, and a mate of mine from school was heavily involved in the sort of logistics trucking industry. And I got a job as a literal shit kicker at a place called Truckworks. And it was there was a place where they bring in trucks and we basically fixed them. And I remember back in those days, I really enjoyed it from a few aspects. And that was that none of the lads in the office or the workshop gave a shit of who I was and care. So I was just Crowley.
Finally, you had that
Yeah.
anonymity that you've been craving for so long.
Yeah, so I was just able to go to work, and all they were worried about was going to the drags and all that sort of stuff. So that was really cool. Yeah, so I spent 6 months. I reckon it was roughly 6 months working at Truckworks, and then my phone rang, and it was Phil Harper from the Adelaide Crows, and he said, "Crowell, are you working at the moment?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Oh, that's all right. I got a job. I was going to see if you wanted it." And I was like, "Please."
what do you got? Hang on,
What have you got?
up.
Yeah, and the reason was coming from working before getting drafted, Phil would come up to me many times and say, "Crowley, I've asked every player. We've got a coaching clinic. I need someone to go down for 2 hours on your day off and run the coaching clinic.
Yeah.
Extra $200." I'm like, "Yeah, mate, I'm happy to help you."
Yeah.
So I got him out of trouble all the time, because for me it was like, that's fine. Whereas a lot of the other players were like, "No, it's my day off. I'm not working."
Oh yeah, don't do it. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So Phil rang me, and he asked me if I'd like to come on board as the junior development coordinator at the Crows.
There you go.
And Phil, to this day, has been one of my great mentors, who's I learned so much from, not only just listening to him, but watching the way he went about things. And so he's been a sensational bloke.
Talk about the stuff you're doing and that junior development stuff, though, about, skilling yourself up again, like learning more things.
Yeah, well, I'd never really done any sort of study or anything along those lines. It was always just sort of, I'd learned from experience effectively, and I've been put into jobs where I'd been a contact that got me in, and I sort of picked things up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Through the Crows, they offered a program which was an advanced diploma in frontline management, which was massive. That was really great for me. I sort of threw myself into that program for, I think it was about a 3 or 4 month qualification to do the initial diploma, and then a bit more afterwards. And that taught me so much around how to structure up my days. That was when I first learnt about the disc profiling, which I've been rolling out. And it just gave me a great foundation to then build upon. So that was the first thing. And then later on in life, I actually studied counselling.
Was that counselling studying done then, or was that later in life after?
That was much later in life. Yeah. And I think that's probably been one of my greatest assets, is that I've been a player who's played the game at the highest level. I've then gone into like a junior development role, so going out and running something. And that was sort of like a membership department type role. Yeah. I then stepped in as I'm trying to think of the term for it. It was like a coterie services executive. So I was looking after sponsors. Then I was doing the on-ground announcing at the same time. So I got to see the sort of event side of things as well. And then later on in life, sort of working with a charity linked to the AFL, and then the AFLPA, to sort of see that view as well. So I've sort of had great experience across all facets of the AFL industry, and got to understand it really, really clearly.
Then fast forward to the Brisbane Lions. Where did that call come from? Was this one of those connections? Someone?
Yeah, it was interesting. So I'd been working for 10 years at a place called Ladder, which was with homeless kids. So I went through all the Adelaide Crows stuff. One of the sponsors I was working with was a mortgage broker, had a mortgage broking company.
Yeah.
They'd done a deal with the Crows to set up Crows Home Loan. Myself and another ex-Crows player got targeted. So I went and worked as a mortgage broker for 2 years.
There you go.
Hated it. Like great industry, great people industry, not for me. No, it just wasn't. And the global financial crisis had hit, so it was just, I was really battled it. I tried to stick it out. I picked the phone up to Rhett Biglands, the guy I spoke about before, and said, "Biggles, I need something else, mate. If you know of anything popping up, like, I need to get out of this. It's not for me.
It's not what I want to do in my life."
He rang me back 10 minutes later, and he said, "Mate, that was unbelievable." He said, "I hung the phone up from you, and the phone rang. It's Mark Bolton, who's an ex-Essendon footballer.
Yes.
They've got some new program they're putting together with the AFL players called Ladder. It's something to do with homeless kids. They want someone in Adelaide who's well-networked and a past player." So I rang Bolts. About 2 weeks later, I'm sitting in for my interview, and I walk in to the interview, and it's with Mark from Ladder, which was the AFL Players Association side of the business.
That was the start of
the start of Ladder. So that was awesome. That for me was where I truly found what I was built for. And that's helping people develop and looking after people. That was massive.
How hard is it though to sit there with those kids who are homeless? It must be a tough but rewarding thing to do. I can only imagine, talk us through a bit of that.
Talk about building resilience.
Yeah.
And just, that taught me that. I spent 10 years there, and I had multiple roles. But then for me, it was like, we'd get these young men and women into the program, and what was the most telling part to it all was that they weren't homeless for any fault of their own. It was multi-generational homelessness that would and trauma that they'd been through. So
Yeah.
what we would do, we would have to build trust and relationships with these young men and women, allow them to make multiple mistakes, but we had their back. And once we sort of showcased that we got you here, yeah. So yeah, worked across multiple facets with these young men and women for many years, and loved it. Also really challenging. I learned a lot of things around boundaries, which I'm implementing now.
Yeah.
Things like finishing up your work day and then having the ability to switch off after work and come back to work the next day with energy. That's something I had to really learn working with homeless kids.
And then, well, that's interesting. You said with the boundaries, but also the thing about building trust. This is something that I found about you is you're very easy to warm to. Like we've only met a handful of times, but even the people I spoke to in this research, if you want to call it that, is that the number one thing that people have said to me is when you're with people, you are so engaged. You're so engaged and you're so present. You're not like airy-fairy distracted. You're actually fucking dialed in.
Yeah.
How much would that apply to those young fellas when you're trying to build trust with them, like, or even the girls and the homeless kids back in the day, trying to build that trust?
Yeah, big time. Yeah, you had to really, because everyone was different, so you had to learn everything about them and learn what their strengths were, learn what their growth areas were. You could never take anything for granted. I mean, I remember one young man, for example, had been doing so well in the program. I said, mate, let's go and I'll buy you lunch today. What do you want to eat? Do you know, I'll buy you a steak. We'll go down to the local pub and I'll buy you a steak. Yeah, he loved it. Sat down with him and like he never been in a pub before. I didn't know how to use a knife and fork. So I was sitting there helping him cut his steak up. So things like that, not taking for granted what we have learnt.
Yep.
But I think the biggest thing was like when they made mistakes, it wasn't just kick them out.
Yeah.
We all make mistakes.
Yeah.
What are you going to learn from it? How can we help you get through that? And that was the big part.
That's almost like being a parent, isn't it?
Yeah, it was big time. And we became that role model for them. And as I said, it was great. I still keep in touch with a lot of them on social media.
Yep.
Follow their stories, and there's so many great stories. We got some. I reckon there's probably 4 or 5 that have come out now, police officers in South Australia. Yeah.
Holy.
Yeah. One young man, he's traveling around the world as a deckhand on a yacht at the moment. It's like, so it's just, a lot of them got kids, and it's just, it's great to see.
No, mate, that's the thing is everyone's got that potential, right? They just need, and probably the hard thing for a lot of those kids is that every person they've ever been close to has either burned them or betrayed them.
That's correct.
That's one thing I've.
Yeah.
And when you touched on it a minute ago, you said like when you were there within the program, that's where you actually found what you're here for.
Yeah.
Just expand on that. Like, what is it that you see your purpose? Because people struggle with this sometimes.
Yeah, I think for me it was like I realised that because I was good at it. Like it was good just because I naturally build relationships with people. So I think I can understand that. It probably comes from that over-awareness where it's like I can see how people are feeling and I want to help.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the thing for me was like, firstly, the skills that I was just given, able to just go and do. But then on top of that, things like building individual development programs and things like that, they were the skills that I learned through there, which I've then now taken forward into these new sort of businesses and industries. Part of my job at the Lions was I did a lot of stuff with the recruitment team, which was probably my favourite part of the job, was sitting down with all of our recruiters and list manager and looking at the new talent that was going to be coming through, and our psychologist was heavily involved in that as well. So
just for clarity, that's like when you were talking about new footballers coming in, like draft picks or even from other clubs or whatever.
And then that was a great part because you got to see all these excited young men.
Yeah.
And then you'd go to the draft and their names would get called out. So you'd get to jump on the phone to the parents and the young man, and that was awesome. Was
there ever any sort of red flags where you would go to someone like and as a decision committee would go, based on the profile and what we've done, we don't think they're a good fit?
It was in the early days, but it was never about the kid not being a good fit for us. It was the opposite. Are we a good fit for the young man? And when I say that, what I mean was in those early days, it was tough at the Brisbane Lions.
Because I think you mentioned that when we first talked, and I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but the culture was pretty alarming in those days.
Yeah.
Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there was just a lot of behind the scenes issues that we had to iron out, and it took in some cases many years to work through some really heavy personal things that some of our players were going through that I sort of had to manage.
Yeah.
So in those early days, we had to make decisions to bring on young men that were not going to be easy to work with, but didn't have the issues and need the support that we couldn't provide.
So the resources that you couldn't allocate resources to that person, and you wouldn't. There's no point in having them there if you can't help them, right?
Yeah. But as time went on and that culture grew, and it was a big part of the success of the Lions is that you have a playing group now that are so fantastic with their leadership and care and resilience that in a way my job became super easy because I wasn't dealing with all the stuff like I was dealing with the other days. So when we'd get to the draft combine and we'd have a young man that was going to be had challenges that we would need to assist with, we had the capacity to help that young man.
So can you give us an example of some of those challenges that, that would have been prevalent? I mean, and I guess those challenges in the modern era, they're probably not any different, but we're probably more versed on how to talk about it now.
Yep.
Give us an example of some of the challenges that we would talk about in the early days.
But the biggest challenges that I dealt with were things like, we had young men coming from remote areas, Indigenous men that needed lots of support. And we're asking 17-year-old kids to leave home for the first time. They've left school. They've never spent any time doing anything else apart from going to school, probably living with mum and dad, to move to the other side of the country in this environment, be thrown into an environment
which is a completely different culture as well.
Completely different culture. For the first time, manage their own house, live with teammates they don't know. So there were things like homesickness we had to deal with. Then you had the more challenging one. There's gambling that was going on. There's you name it. So and the other part people don't understand is that it wasn't just the players we were helping. So there was the families needed support, and we used to pride ourselves on what we would do with families. We created the best sort of support packages and communication tools for everyone. We didn't draft the player; we drafted the whole family to the Brisbane.
Yeah, brought everyone on board. From there, when you join and changing the culture, like that's not a small journey. That's like you said, it was years of work.
Yeah.
Just talk me through the brief. If you could say, we're in an AFL club over here, and we got some pretty shitty culture things. Like, what are the main components? Give us 5 things that you should look at in terms of what are your priorities.
Yep. So what we did initially, we had to set what the values were and what were the standards from a cultural point of view. So, I mean, this is where Chris Fagan and David Noble were sensational.
Yep.
Create a great culture. Well, what does that look like?
What does it even mean?
Yeah, so understanding what the values were, but more importantly, what are the behaviours that sit under the values, and then consistently going back and holding ourselves accountable to those. So talking about our values in team meetings, and we had the Pride of the Lions award every month. We had a group called Moments of Greatness where we would continually celebrate great acts of our culture. So that was the first part. Growth mindset. The change from a fixed mindset to growth mindset was enormous in those early days.
Yep.
And that's some of the work that Chris Fagan did. He was unbelievable at effectively teaching players about what it looked like from a growth mindset point of view and the different language that we would use.
And growth doesn't have to be about, winning the next 3 games on the bounce. It's about how do you grow as a person.
Yeah, so it changed things from, we wouldn't talk about player weaknesses or mistakes. Mistakes were viewed as opportunities and weaknesses were growth areas. So the language change was enormous around, come and sit down with your development coach and do some work on your growth areas. Sounds a lot better than, mate, you made heaps of mistakes on the weekend. We need to work on your weaknesses. Yeah. So language change was enormous. That took a long time to work through that.
And trust as well. Trust with those people. Again, this is sort of tying back to the latter program working with homeless kids.
Yep.
Completely pivoting away from, instead of catching people doing something wrong, catch them doing something right.
Yes, absolutely. So a big part of what we consistently did was celebrate the really small wins.
Yeah.
And that was something that Fags was the master at as well as I talked a lot about David Noble. He was massive for me back in those early days. But, we weren't winning too many games. We were getting our asses handed to us most weekends. So the ability for Fags to sit down in a team meeting and for 45 minutes of the hour talk about what we really did well and continually showcase we're moving the needle. It's marginal gains we continually talked about. We had to provide a really professional structure. So for example, if you looked at my area, what I implemented was individual development plans for all players. They all had their own individual development plan. We had a dashboard, which was a personal development and wellbeing dashboard that we looked at every week. We had real standards around every single Monday. My team would sit down and go through the players from A to Z on how they're going development-wise. When I say development, is around what's their education, training, employment, community, hobbies looking like away from football.
Yep.
Then we talk about how they're going. Are there any signs that we're seeing that they might be struggling at the moment? So we're really proactive. And then we would report that into our general manager. And he understood that a lot of those conversations were really confidential. So he was very mindful of the fact that there were some players that I couldn't talk about what was going on. So he would not know a lot of the stuff that I would deal with as well. And no one at the football club would know, apart from me and the player.
Yeah.
That happened on a lot of occasions where I was dealing with serious stuff with the players and no one at the footy club.
So when you say serious, like, are we talking like health stuff for them personally?
Yeah, and some mental health things. There was some stuff to do from family. I mean, during the time of the footy club, 2 of our players lost their younger brothers to suicide. So we had to work through those things. One of our players lost his younger brother to cancer. So had to deliver that news to him after a game, which wasn't pleasant.
No.
But we had to be set up. But yeah, so there was lots of issues that we would talk through, but it was done religiously. Every Monday, we were going through this. Every Monday, we'd go and report to our general manager. We'd look at the noise. So what are the constant themes we're seeing? What's coming out of the playing group at the moment? Are there too many appearances going on? Are players complaining about selection? What are we hearing?
Where's
and how
squeaky wheel?
Yeah, and how can we address that really quickly, which we were able to. So having those real structures in place were super important to making, like, just basically providing standards. And then probably the final piece to it was around communication. Peter Blanche was our physiotherapist at the time. I'd sit in on their meeting on Monday morning, go through every player, hear about what's going on physically with them. I was able to contribute about how some players are going emotionally. We'd adjust things up just to make sure that every angle was looked after.
You had lived experience with going through injury yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and you sort of, you can never not know that anymore once you've known what it feels like to do a knee and have to go through all the physio and the rehab. And again, that just gives you a common ground with the fellas if they're struggling with rehab.
Yes. And on the flip side as well, like Blanchy, the physiotherapist at the time, he was acutely aware of the impact emotional and mental well-being had on the physical.
Yeah.
And we had, cases where players were going through off-field issues that I was working with, and we had to alter their physical training to adjust to that. We had players that weren't sleeping at times through to mental health type things where I'd have to communicate that to the physios and say, hey, just let you know, Charlie hasn't slept last night. He's got some things going on. I can't tell you what's going on, but I need to tell you that he hasn't had much sleep. So they would then monitor that player through training to ensure that player got through injury-free.
And one thing that I touched on, you touched on a minute ago about, cultures and everything else, and especially when you're bringing these kids in from, remote parts and Aboriginal heritage.
Yep.
And then the music side of this. So where I'm leading with this is you've obviously got an affinity to the Aboriginal culture. Can we talk about SD briefly?
I grabbed a 6-pack of beer one night and my guitar, and I trundled down to Mark's place, and I've knocked on the door, and this dude opened the door up, and it's this Aboriginal fella about my age, and he's like, "Hey, how you going, brother?" I'm like, "Good." I'm like, "Have I got the right place?" He was like, "Yeah. Mark said you'll come down." He said, "Oh, he wants us to have a jam." And I must have been at the time, I was like, I don't really, when you don't really feel like meeting anyone. I was
you
like,
don't know this fella. You're like, oh.
Anyway, we just got on like a house on fire. He ended up back at my place. We were sitting in my little man cave, drinking beers, and we're just playing acoustic guitars. And we just had this weird sense, like I'd be playing and singing, and Seth would be on his guitar, and I'd be thinking to myself, I'd love it if he just started playing a lead solo right now. And then he'd just start playing a solo at the right time.
And
then he'd say to me, he goes, I don't know what it is, Crowley, but I'll be coming to the end of my solo thinking, I hope Andrew comes back and singing after I finish this bit. And you do. And like for the next 10 years, we just fell into this band. Like I can't remember. I think I remembered we started off, he'd got an invite to an Aboriginal art gallery opening, and he rang me and said, "Hey, brother, would you play this gig with me?" And I'm like, "Hey, we don't know any songs." He goes, "No, we just I need to play 6 songs." So we learnt 6 songs, and then someone came up and said, "You guys are great. Could you guys do a similar gig to that?" And then my dad had his 60th, so we learnt 50-odd songs.
Yeah.
My brother plays bass, and we got a drummer in, and we just played for the next 10 years.
Tempest Vex.
Tempest Vex means time. So time is tempest in
Yes.
Latin, and vex is to like irritate, frustrate. Because we always used to say, man, we wish we'd done this when we were younger, and we never have time. So time frustration was the name.
I love that.
Yeah, so that was, mate, that was the, like, talk about the fun years of my life. So we would play every weekend. All the locals knew us, and it was so much fun. And then I moved to Brisbane. Old mate SD he was in another band for a short period of time, but he sort of got, he had long-standing issues. There were some heavy times we both went to together, and he always had that element of, he battled. And then, unfortunately, many, many years later, Seth passed away, took his own life. And
he meant a lot to you, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, that was the first time I'd ever dealt with serious grief.
Yep.
Like, you'd lose family members and so forth, but that was the first time for me where I was gone. And it was, before I speak of that, I was studying counselling at the time.
Yeah.
And I just learnt about grief counselling.
Yep.
So I was super prepared for it. So that was a good part.
To a degree, as much as you can be prepared.
Yeah, so I knew what to expect and what I was going through. And I just knew that it was unpredictable and that there was going to be lots of different emotions that would go through. I just had to write it out. But my initial response was disbelief, which was really short, then followed by, I don't even know how to, it was unbelievable sadness, but I had to save everything that I had with Seth because I didn't want to lose that.
Yeah.
And I knew that I had CDs lying around that we'd recorded. I knew that I had, God knows what. So I tore the house apart for 2 days. My missus was like, "What are you doing?" She knew, she was very great through that, but I tore the house apart and just basically found everything that I'd recorded with him.
Okay.
And the funniest though was I wanted to record, I wanted to get it all on the cloud so it would never be lost. Yeah. And I had CDs. So I jumped in my car and went to Carindale Shopping Centre because I had to get a disc reader that I could plug into my computer. And I remember walking through Carindale into JB Hi-Fi's, and then after about 5 minutes of looking, realised that I was in my pyjamas.
Are you joking?
I didn't realise. I had my pyjamas on, which was like pretty much like boxer shorts.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know. I was just, I had to get it done. So that was super sad time. Yeah. So I was just like on a mission. And then I found so much great stuff. I found this recording on my phone where what we used to do is we used to sit in the shed together, and we'd come up with something, and I'd say, right, I'll press record on my phone, and then we just record it so we had it.
Yeah.
And then we'd work on it over however long to make it great. But I found this recording that I pressed record and I forgot to press stop, and it goes for over an hour. And it's us playing 3 or 4 different songs, but just chatting.
Oh man, that's gold.
And yeah, it's so good. So I listened back, and it was great to then show his kids that and a few things. But I the tough part about dealing with that with me was like picking the guitar. It was always the thing that got me through.
Yeah, I can resonate with that. But that's my comfort animal too.
Yeah,
like it's.
But with that, I couldn't.
Then you couldn't do it. Yeah.
So it took me ages before I could pick a guitar up. But what I did is I penned a poem, like I wrote a poem out, and it just flowed. Like it took me, I don't know, 20 minutes, but it was like the big long poem about our time together in the band, all that. That I read that at his funeral. Yep. Which was tough, but yeah, important that I did it. But the plan was to always make a song from that. Yeah. It was called Until We Meet Again. Like talking about memories, I remember SD and we were playing the Cornwall Hotel. There's a name for you. The Cornwall Hotel in Moota. As a regular gig for us, and we'd always stay there, and we'd go upstairs and then start a room upstairs, and everything was free for us, and the power went out in the whole town. Yep. We were in probably into our second set. We'd play 4 sets over 4 hours, and the power went out. And the managers come over. She goes, "What are we going to do?" Like, well, she just said, "Power's not coming back on for 5 hours." And I said, "Well, we'll just go on the street and have you got candles and shit?" She said, "Yeah, we got candles sorted out." And SD had just got a portable lead guitar amplifier, battery powered, just by chance. So he strapped that on, and I just stood there with my acoustic guitar, and I said, "Just put some beers on ice and bring him out on the footpath." So we got everyone on the footpath, and we just started playing, like no amps or anything like that. We were just singing. I was singing at the top of my voice, and Seth's like walking through the crowd, ripping guitar solos out. Everything else, like within a 50K radius, was closed, and everyone came to the Cornwall.
No.
So we had hundreds, well, that's probably an exaggeration. There were tens
Probably
of people.
1,000 people.
It felt like there were hundreds, but like she made a bucket load. Everyone had a great time because they were still able to have a beer and so forth.
Yeah.
And we just kept playing. My voice was cooked the next day.
Next morning you wake up.
Yeah. But
we've
like
done that before.
yeah, great times.
Mate, I love that. I love the fact that he still lives very much to your energy, mate. I can see that and how much he meant to you. I was a bit dubious we were bringing it up, to be honest, because I didn't want to become this sort of segue into. But I'm really glad I did.
Yeah,
because I can see how much it meant to you, and still does.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like in the work that I do and have done over the past 25 years, it's when you go through grief. Like I think there's a turning point at some stage where you stop feeling sad about them and you really start to love talking about them. And for me, it happened probably 6 months after I lost him, that I wanted to talk about him and every opportunity, because they're good memories. They're great memories.
100%.
So it does, I have moments where I get sad because he's gone, because I'd love nothing more to, play the guitar with him. But the majority of it is when you talk about it. So that's it's awesome. Those memories will never fade.
It's so important to keep talking with these people because it's that's what keeps the memory alive. Like, and we have a saying in Ireland, and I don't even know if it's an Irish saying, but you die twice.
Yep.
The first time is when you pass, and the second time is when the last time somebody mentions your name.
Yep.
So we have a duty, I think, to keep them alive.
Yeah.
To that.
Well, that was
point.
It was a big part of why I wanted to record that song and release it on Spotify as well. It was like it was great that people could hear the music, but the best part about it was like that'll be there forever.
Yep.
And his kids will be able to show their kids, like, this is your grandpa.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember sitting down in this his mum's kitchen, and with his son there. This is probably would have been maybe 3 months after the funeral, and playing the song to them for the first time on my phone.
Yeah.
And just how much it meant to them. And yeah.
I want to delve into this a bit here, because you mentioned it was pretty timely that, you'd started this counselling training, and part of that was dealing with grief. But just give me some of the tools that helped you and the life lessons about grief through there.
Yeah.
Just dig into that a bit for me.
I think the number one lesson that I learned about grief is that it doesn't just happen in order.
Yeah.
There's no order of first thing that's going to happen to you is this is going to go on. Then you're going to go through this. Then you're going to go through that.
Yeah.
So it was the unpredictability of what was coming, and to just embrace it and ride the wave. So for me, it was, I went through times of anger. I went through immense sadness. There was blame that came in. There was all these kinds of different emotions, but knowing that they were coming and that it was okay, they would pass. That was probably the first part to us. And there's no order to it. As I said before, it's just going to happen. I suppose I was prepared because we'd gone through these are the different emotions that may pop up through grief. You just got to basically assess what am I going through now and get through it. And the other one was there's no fixing it. So that's the thing. So a lot of people, I've dealt with some people at Ray White who've been through some horrific things, and they're dealing with grief, and people that are around them sort of sit down and say, well, how do I fix this situation? Well, you can't. You've just got to be there for them to lean on. So they were the big ones. Is not expecting that it's going to get fixed, and that it's a range of emotions that are going to hit you at any time, and be prepared and just roll with them.
What do you say to someone, Carly, who Because the blame thing is something that's really poignant now. You touched on it there a minute ago about what could I have done differently, you know? What were the signs? What was, you know what I mean?
Yep.
How do you deal with the blame? Because if you're in that mindset of, you know, I could have done something different there.
Yep. Yeah.
What do you say to someone like that?
For me, it's you just talk to people, because you obviously have these crazy emotions that go through your mind. It's talking to people and just getting them out. I did the same thing. I had a psychologist that I'd worked with at the Lions who I got on the phone to and had a good chat to as well. And I articulated that I was feeling guilty as well. I'd moved to Queensland. You know, if I was back in Adelaide, this wouldn't have happened. But she was just able to say, look, is that really the truth? And she talked through it. And it was just for me getting things off my chest and her saying, look, that's natural that you're going to think that way. But the reality is that you can't fix it, and you're not to blame. So the big one is just talk to people, and I think it's allow people to help as well. Like I would talk about Scotty Ballace. I'd been flat for a week, I think it was. I'd barely been off my couch in tears, and Scotty rang me and said, mate, you want to come play golf with me? I said, mate, I'll barely get off the couch. And he said, no worries, I'll be there in 20 minutes. And he took me golfing, and it was the best thing that we could have done. Like, it made me feel like, just got me back out there moving again. You'd love to have a magic wand that just goes, grief is now gone, but the reality is you've got to talk. You lean on the ones that love you, get around those people, and get support from others. There'll be a time though when that wall will come down.
Okay, so if I'm the fella who's going through the grief, or even the girl that will talk to me, I'm going through the grief, and you can see I'm hurting.
Yep.
And you can see that I need to talk to someone, but I'm just giving you the fuck off, mate.
Yep.
How do you get around that mechanism?
Yeah, I think it's for me, I'm not pestering you, asking lots of questions. I might just talk to you without saying things like, are you doing okay, mate, or this. So it's just striking up a conversation just to get us talking.
Yep. And
then the wall may eventually come down. But I think it's putting it into your hands that you've got to be ready to talk. You can't force someone to talk if they're not ready to. We talked a lot when we had a couple of serious issues happening at the Lions. We talked about the different roles of everybody as well. So if you imagine a young man lost his younger brother to cancer, he's away for 2 months. He comes now back to the footy club. We've got 50 to 100 people that love him, want to make sure he's okay.
Yeah.
He walks into their office and everyone says to him, hey, mate, I hope you're doing okay. If there's anything we can help you with, please help. So he's had 100 people say that.
Which is what everyone wants to say, and
Correct.
They want to offer that support.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
It can do more harm than good, because he's got to relive that moment and talk about how he's feeling. So what we did, we had a chaplain come in and do some work with us on this around nominating 2 or 3 people in that space that are really close with that person. That's their role, is to make sure that those questions are being asked. Everyone else's role is to say, hey, it's great to have you back. We've missed you, mate. It's great to have you back.
Yeah, I love that.
So he gets that feeling of, I'm loved, they've missed me, but I don't need to explain my story thousands of times.
I can resonate with that.
Yeah. And that's why I love the work I do and the role that I have, is because it just showcases how important culture is.
Yeah.
And you think about, like, the people that you lean on a lot of times, if you have something devastating happen within a football club, like how great is that football club at getting around that person? Like, you just lean on everyone.
But I want to ask you this then, now having transversed from the sporting world into the corporate world with Ray White, the corporate culture filters down. Would you agree with that sentiment?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and you saw that within sporting as well. Like, yeah, AFL and your AFL Players Association, sort of, they've got a view across the whole industry, so they need to shape things and implement resources and so forth that can help with culture.
Yeah.
And this, what I've seen in this industry, is that there's some amazing leaders out there that haven't had to spend a lot of their lives leading or managing. They've been amazing when it comes to sales and real estate, thrown into these leadership positions where they don't have a lot of those skills, but there's a real want and need to build great culture. And we're just lucky, yet within Ray White corporate that we've got a leader in Jason Andrew who's really values it, and the amount of resources that he's put in place to help the businesses and have that flow down effect. It's amazing. And it's interesting, I think, the way, I think it's funny because a lot of my mates, colleagues have all said, how the hell is what you do with sports people going to translate to Ray White in the corporate world? But if you look back over the industry and you look back at when I was playing at the Crows, there was no welfare manager. There was no one there to say, hey, we're going to protect players' days off so they can rest and recover. There's no focus on development programs and, what are you going to do after footy? It was like you played for the Crows. That was a privilege that you get to play for the Crows. Now you're not required, so good luck with what's going on next.
Yeah.
You then look at how that whole industry has moved over the last 15, 20 years, and now the human element of elite athletes is probably the number one thing that clubs are looking at now. If you want to retain your best players and if you want to recruit the greatest players in the competition, you've got to protect and care for those human beings better than any other football club. If you want them to perform on a daily basis, you need to protect their human element of what they do because they're humans. And what I'm seeing now is that it's almost like the corporate sector is a little bit behind, and that's where sports now teaching corporate space.
The sport led the charge.
Yeah.
And now the corporate world slowly catching up.
Because I must admit, a lot of the times when I'll go into a business, particularly in the first month or two, I was going in to present going, I don't think I'm really given much here.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, this is going to be embarrassing because I'm going to present on growth mindset. I'm going to present on this, and they're going to just laugh at me because this is common knowledge. But in actual fact, it's not.
It's not.
There were so many things that, most of what I do, when I sit there and talk to people, I'm thinking, how do you guys not know this already? But it's because it's been my world for 20 years.
Fair.
And it's just what happens. And that's probably why I'm just thriving from a personal point of view. I absolutely love what I'm doing now. I don't have days that I get out of bed and go, I don't want to go to work. I love it.
So how did the Ray White connection come about? Like, how did that?
That was quite funny, actually. So I took a great mate of mine, a guy that's helped me enormously since I've been in Brisbane, a guy called David Trelaw. He rang me 2024 and he said, mate, can you do me a favour? The CEO of Queensland, Ray White, his son's a Lions supporter. Is there any chance you could take him through the new facilities and on a tour? I said, mate, anytime, bring him out. So I brought him out, did a tour of the facilities. And Jason, he was really interested in what I did. He kept asking a lot of questions. About 2 hours after he left, Dave rang me and said, mate, would you ever do a speaking gig? Jason's asked if you could speak at this function we have. I said, mate, more than happy to. So I came along to Ready, Set, Go in 2024. And Jason interviewed me on stage. And again, I was on stage thinking, geez, I haven't given him much. Jason rang me after, go, mate, that was unbelievable. It was really good. Everyone's talking about it.
Yeah.
So I sort of just loosely kept a connection with Jason, and I mainly would see him at games because they became sponsors. So I'd always see Jason and Mon there and Delaney. And then I was leaving the Lions, and I'd been thinking about it for a couple of years. I was actually thinking of going to another organisation, but I was also going to do some speaking gigs. And I rang Jason, and I was just going to say to him, hey, mate, what resonated from the speaking gig I did with Ray White? And he just said, mate, are you kidding me? Have you left Lions? Yeah. And he said, mate, I was talking to the White family 3 days ago in Sydney about this new role, and you're the person that we wanted to target for the role, but we didn't think we'd get you because you're the Lions. Yeah. So I went through, it was awesome. So then I'd had, I think it was 5 businesses reach out. So I said to Jason, man, I'm going through the process with a few others.
Yeah.
He was really respectful of that. So it took me probably 6 weeks to choose where I was going to go. And
the other business is real estate as well?
Not at all. There was construction. There was oil and diesel refinery. There was all with a very similar role. There was a registered training organisation that was one as well. Yeah. There's a few out there and it was comforting to know that a lot of these different industries were going down that path. Yeah. But there was something different about Ray White. It was, the whole culture of the business and.
Well, it's a family business at the end of the day. I know we've got we got a lot of franchises and whatnot across the bloody country, but at the end of the day, that goes back to the family, right?
It does. Yeah. So the family aspect was big, and then probably the scalability as well. Like to go national, international with what I'm doing. That's definitely a plan.
So Dan, who was our previous guest, the question I said to him, and I said, give me your question you'd like to put to Andrew. So here we go. It goes without saying that there are quite a few components that need to be consistently contributed to in order to feel your best. Based on your own experience, what are the top 3 things that people could do each day to build a stronger, happier, and more resilient state of being?
It is a tough question.
Good question.
No, I like it. When you started reading through that, it reminded me of a session I've been running around energy. There's sort of 4 different batteries that we continually need to charge. It's your physical battery, your emotional battery, your mental battery, and your social battery. So they're the 4 batteries that you continually need to look at.
So starting at the top then with the first one.
Yeah. So physically, it's do something physical every day, whether it's exercising. So I think I don't know what was in this. We've been talking for a long time, but I've set a challenge. It was one of the toughest things I've had to adjust is my physical battery. Going from being in a office with the gym right there, and a day off a week where I could go and do whatever, I found it really challenging to stay physically fit. So I bought myself a gym that the kids and I can use downstairs. So I'm doing 4 weight sessions a week where we hold each other accountable. So that's the first one.
So physical is the first thing?
Physicals. So mental. So things like, what's getting in the way. So I make sure that I can reduce my screen time as well. So mental one is for me, it's not always having the phone in my face. I'm whether it's playing my guitar, listening to a podcast, talking to my wife, spending time with family. That's a big one for me, making sure that battery's charged, not being stuck to that thing. So the things that I'm, the mental side for me is that actual activity? Are you invested in that activity mentally? So when I get up the next morning, my brain has copped a rest from work. So I'm actually I'm happy to be at work today because I haven't thought about it all night.
Yeah.
Yep. The social one's an easy one for me. It's making sure you stay connected to the people around you.
Yeah.
So I sort of mix them too because we're all time poor. So when I go for my walks, a lot of the times it's a podcast and it's music, but a lot of the times as well, it's on the
phone.
Yeah, brother, sister, mum.
So that's the social side of it.
Yep.
And what's the last one?
The emotional part. It's a little bit about how you handle pressure, I think. So emotionally, sort of what are you doing to prepare yourself for the pressure that you're going to see? For me, it's about preparation. I always do things well and handle pressure well when I'm really well prepared. Mark Bickley, back in the early days, he said the old 6 Ps, prior preparation prevents piss poor performance. So for me on a daily basis, I'm making sure that I'm dedicating some time in my schedule to make sure that the rest of the week I'm prepared for. Yep. And that just helps me emotionally so that when I get to those days when I've got a really big presentation at Ready, Set, Go, and I'm going on stage in front of 1,000 people, I'm emotionally doing okay because I know that I've put the work in to prepare for it. One of the things I've done with a lot of agents in this space, particularly the ones who, when they get to the end of the day, they're still thinking about work at 10 o'clock at night, is we do a game day review.
Yep.
So it's part of their process now. So what they do is at the end of their work day when they're about to go home, they've got half an hour scheduled in their diary. And during that half an hour, what they have to do is ask themselves a number of questions. Firstly, it's things like, have I achieved everything today that I set out to achieve? If not, is there anything that must be done now and can't wait till tomorrow? Yep. And if that's the case, get it done. Because what we don't want you to do is go home and emotionally be under pressure at home. So that's a big part about it. Rate your day. How was my day today? Yep, it's good. I had a good day. Yep. What could I learn from it? So what is it that I took away from today that I can take into tomorrow? And it's particularly pertinent at the moment to the industry we're in. Like, I didn't have a great day. I lost 3 listings. Okay, well, what did I learn about that? What could I do to get better? Yeah. Celebrate the wins. So we're looking at like, what are the process wins versus the outcome wins? So what are the things that were in my control today that I did really well?
Yeah, what could you actually control?
Yep. So celebrating them. But then the last little piece to it, and they love it, is around thinking time and creative time during that half an hour to go, I've now got this property that I have to sell. I'm going to allow myself 20 minutes now to brainstorm as many ideas as I possibly can and get them on paper. So when I get home, I've done that already. I don't need to worry because I've given myself time to actually just sit there and just think, okay, what is it that I need to do? And then the last piece of it is that now that I've done all of that, I can now give myself permission to go home and just switch off. It's not as, it'd be great if it was that easy to do.
Practice makes perfect.
Practice makes perfect. Yeah. So what have we done today? We've talked about a fair bit, haven't we?
We've talked about a fair bit.
I think the grief conversation was good. I think talking about, those emotions that will pop up sort of unexpectedly at any time, and the importance of having great people around you to support you, and probably from that as well, it's the culture pieces around how important it is for businesses out there and organizations to set up great cultures.
I think the thing that resonated for me with that comment was the allow people to help you. From someone who fought that side of the equation for so long.
Yep.
Like, was just actually allowing people in.
Yep. And it's important as well is that helping someone doesn't mean fixing them.
No.
It's allowing them just to be there, and listening is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah. That we didn't go into the conversation I had about when I struggled at the Lions, but at the Crows, and Rhett grabbed me and took me into the doctor's office. But that hour that I had with the doctor, where he didn't actually fix any of my problems, but I just spoke about it. I walked out of there feeling 80% better. And I think the other thing with that as well is that it's okay. That's what I talk about. It's like you feel like shit at the moment and you feel like the weight's on your shoulders and you've got all this stuff going on. It's all right.
Yeah.
It's okay to feel that way.
But how much of that are we, like, if you think about that, even in that time with the Crows, how much of that were you trying to live up to other people's, but your perception of their expectation?
Yeah. I was trying to live up to everyone's expectations, probably my own expectations. And back then it was probably not understanding mental health and depression and these sorts of things.
Yeah.
So to sit there and get it off my chest to the doctor and him go, mate, it's okay that you're feeling like that. That's fine. Like, we all go through tough times and we can help you get better. Keep talking to us about it. And I walked out there going, oh, wow. Okay. So it's not unusual. This is all right. This is normal. I think the other one for me today as well is because it's rare that you get to do this, like reflect on your career.
Yeah.
Everyone sort of moves on really quickly and you get invested in the now, but reflecting back on my footy career and early days as well, around that importance of sacrifice and listening to those around you as well. So I think for the aspiring athletes out there, and I know it's a different world, particularly in the AFL space now, where there's so many pathways into the AFL space where you get so much good coaching and leadership and lessons to learn. What I certainly would have benefited from was those as well, is understanding that you're young, enjoy yourself, yes, but there's making sacrifices at that age in order to benefit long term. Like I go back to the Corny Point thing. So Corny Point, God's country down there, and
it does look stunning.
It's great.
Say. It looks
Love it.
phenomenal.
Yeah. And we've camped there since I was this big. And my kids are sixth generation since I've always camped at Corny Point. And I always used to think about, I'm training with the Crows. I'm not going down there. I wish I was down there. I'd be out in the boat and I'd be surfing and all that sort of stuff. I reflect now and say, if I had have actually made the sacrifices I needed to make, listen to my coaches, listen to the advice of those people around me that knew what I needed to do to be a great footballer, I probably would have played a lot better. I know I would have played a lot better, had a much longer career. I'd probably have the biggest shack at Corny Point and the best boat right now. My kids would have been able to enjoy it. So in hindsight, I look back and go, why didn't I do that? But that's probably a big driver as why I got into the AFL and the ability to sit down with players and have those conversations and help them understand that, hey, whilst it might seem not that fun now, but the pre-season you're currently doing, if you can make a few sacrifices and smash it, the long-term benefits are going to be huge.
And there's two things that have come out of that for me. Is the first one is like, righto, you can't change it. It is what it is.
Yep.
So it takes time to accept that. But then the other part of this, I see this again, this is a real estate part now. I see this a lot in real estate where a lot of young people, they want the freedom that real estate gives them.
Yes.
Without the apprenticeship. And especially in the last 4 or 5 years when the market's been, they don't. So do you have to have those conversations in the world today?
A lot of the time, a lot of it. So it goes back to that exact thing. So it's not glamorous now. Like it's almost like your 4-year apprenticeship. You've got to get in there as an associate or an admin and do the hard yards in order to have that
Yeah.
that freedom and flexibility of a lead agent, where you've got associates and admin staff
Correct.
underneath you. So that's it. But it's also about do the hard work, but make sure those 4 batteries, you're making sure you're charging those at the same time.
Yeah.
So you're not wasting, you're continually recovering,
Yeah.
but it's still hard. You still got to work hard. Yeah. Well, my great mate Dutch always says there's one thing you can't teach, and that's experience.
Correct.
And there's a lot of people in this industry. You always, because we're all getting old now. It's like you don't get old, you get experience.
Yeah.
You can't teach experience. So you got to understand that as a young fella or a young lady that's got all these people around them that have got such great experience. Utilize that, learn from it. They're not telling that for no reason.
No, mate. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thanks for your time.